back to the Cash Flow Show. I am your host, Christian Creo. I'm excited for today's interview. We've been meaning to get this on the books for quite some time, but our guest is Myles Powell. Thank you for being on the show, Myles. We're so excited to have you on.
Surely, Christian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, an engineer turned TV feature cook determined to bring the highest quality food CPG to market. Born in a family of foodies and entrepreneurs, Myles has always had a love for food and a proclivity for hustle. While pursuing a career in engineering, Myles nurtured his passion for food by experimenting with new recipes. He found himself on Food Network's America's Best Cook. That stint sealed the deal for Myles, who decided that food would play a bigger role in life than just a hobby. Myles, again, we're super excited to have you on. You've got an amazing background. I've gotten to know you, over the last couple of years now, it seems like, and I just love your background, right? Your story, what you stand for, what your brands stand for. And I'm excited for our listeners to get to hear a little more about you, learn more about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, let's do it. First of all, great intro. You painted the story really well. It's going to sound really basic, right? But I think it's just my love of food just runs so deep. There's a running joke that I base all of my events and memories on food. Like all of my best memories, food was always at the centerpiece. And growing up that way, you just develop a deep passion for everything related to it, from the prep to the serving of it. And then really, I gained so much happiness off of the reaction to what I make. I call it that first bite feel. And when I was growing up, kind of went down the traditional path, right? I was decent at math. And so my parents and, my family said, you should be an engineer, great stable job. But at the same time, I was always encouraged to be an entrepreneur. And so initially it was, okay, I'll be an engineer and I'll start my own engineering firm, right? And then college happened, and I'm starting. I'm coming out of high school on a rocket ship. Pretty good grades and a lot of offers. I'm ready to rock and roll. First year of college, I got my butt whooped. Right, I'm just not ready for the engineering curriculum. And one of the things it did was it taught me about perseverance and kind of how to bounce back. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't like doing this. I don't enjoy this curriculum at all. But then I discovered my love for business, because I was at the time, I said, well, if I'm going to have my own engineering firm, I need to know business. And as I picked up this minor in business, I'm like, I love that. I'm really good at that. But I still had my eyes set on engineering because I was determined to make it happen. Ended up graduating with the civil engineering degree, but had this business minor. And it's funny, I feel like I'm still faking it, because I'm still like, well, I have to do engineering now because I spent all this time and money on it. But I've got this business thing on the side that I really want to figure out how I'm going to bring that in. And, I don't want to say too much for the first question, but it was as soon as I graduated that things started to really click. I'm like, okay, I think I know what I want to do now.
I love that. So tell us a little bit more about that, right? Because looking at where you stand now, it's nowhere near where you started, right? And you and I were cracking jokes before the show here, but we're all told the same story, right? Go to school, get good grades. You call it the traditional route. Go get a good job with great benefits, right?
Yep.
That is typically what people pursue, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But what's important for people to know is there are alternatives that you could pursue, right? And oftentimes it can be while you maybe have a corporate job. But I love your story in particular. What led you down the route to where you are today, right? Where did it all start?
Yeah, so really, the biggest milestone at this point in my life, 21 years old, was that first job, right? Getting that paycheck meant everything. It was like I could be an adult. Like they just, so coming out of college, you kind of have this moment of realization, right? You're like, okay, I'm entering that next phase. So I graduated, moved out to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I tell people that while it's not the most happening city in the country, I had so much time alone and quiet time that I began to really think about what I want to do in my life. And my second day of this full-time job, I'm sitting at my office, right? And I had this alarming thought because the time is like 9:30 in the morning. And I think I just learned about kind of what the progression looked like at this company, very corporate, 20, 30 years to get to this point. And I had this moment of, you mean to tell me I have to do this, wake up at the same time, come to the same place for 20, 30 years. And my brain just like broke. And I'm saying, no, this, there's no way. And at the time, I already knew that I was going to go to grad school, but my focus was on doing that for the whole engineering thing. But now I'm shifting. I'm like, okay, I got to do something else. So I went home and I naturally gravitated towards the kitchen, right? Because that's where I felt the most joy and motivation. And as I'm cooking, I realized I have the skill. And I'm sharing my recipes online and people are encouraging me. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can do something with food. And I had this, it's a crazy thing where I ended up applying to be on the Food Network just on a whim. And just because I wanted to get in touch with the industry. Got accepted to this brand new competition series, went to this show, came home from the show, and it was like, there it is. Like, I want to do food and I want to start a food company. And that's when it was like the gears started turning where I knew engineering was going to be left behind at some point.
Wow. I love that. And I think it takes a lot to do that, right? Especially when you've worked so hard for a specific path to sort of break away from that. I think that can be difficult. So let's dive into your overall journey with business, right? So you come back from the Food Network, at heart that food has always been at the center of who you are. And so what's next, right?
It's like, I call it clawing at the walls because this is 2013, 14, where my network is super small, right? Everyone that I know is my age doing engineering or they're doing corporate. So I'm going out on this entrepreneurship limb without any real knowledge of how to do that. So it's me and it's Google. And I'm just figuring out along the way, how do I start a business? So when I launched the company in 2015, and it was just slow steps forward because I'm still working the full-time job because I need the money. But on the side, I'm building up this brand. And it's kind of a snail's pace, which is the opposite of what you hear about nowadays. We hear about these companies that are rocket ship, right? They start on day one and they're doing $1 million in sales in 12 months. That's not the reality for most companies, right? There's a lot of figuring it out along the way. And so things like how to trademark the name, how to create a website, all these things I'm just learning by hand. And I ended up moving to DC. I just finished grad school and I'm like, you know what? Number one, I want to expand my network. And also I want to feel like I'm in a major metropolitan city with all these opportunities. I'm 25. So I moved to DC and it's just like my eyes just wide open now. Okay, let's build this thing up. But once again, making a lot of mistakes, just trying to figure it out. There weren't a lot of accelerator programs then, and I'm kind of on my own here, right? Just trying to figure out how to build this company. And so each step that I took felt like a step backwards, but each time I did that was a learning lesson. I kept building on that and kept building on that for the next 4 to 5 years.
Awesome. No, I love that. I love that. And Myles, while we're sort of talking about your overall journey, I want to do a plug for your company just because I love the story behind it, right? You and I always talk about how the food may taste amazing, but at the end of the day, it's the story that really sells to people. And it's so important to have a brand as a company, right? And I think yours is the brand that your firm has is just incredible. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your company, right? We're learning a little bit about the history and the trajectory. I'd love for our listeners to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so the core essence has always been great tasting food. I'm fortunate enough where I don't really have a lot of diet restrictions, but I also like to be mindful of what I eat, right? So my thoughts are homemade cooking is the best.
Mhm.
When you go grocery shopping, most of the things you buy aren't homemade, right? It's factory made, mass production. For me, I wanted to bring that homemade, I wanted to have people experience that homemade quality that I had that they can pick up in grocery. And we started out actually, it's funny, the company started out as a barbecue sauce company, as my way to encourage people to experiment in the kitchen with these sauces like I did. Clean line, they were made with real fruits, great flavor. Um, my pivot to what is now a comfort food brand came because while I enjoyed making sauces, the most thing that I enjoyed was what I'm putting it in or putting it on.
Mm.
And growing up, eating those comfort food and the impact that I know it had on me and my family, I'm like, okay, I think people should be able to eat this too. And I'm going to put it in frozen for that convenience that we, especially as a millennial, really, really require. And if you look at kind of like, so we do mac and cheese. And if you look at the market of mac and cheese right now in grocery, heavily processed, it's not real mac and cheese. And I said, well, how about we do it so it's real deal mac, something that you can be proud to serve at home. And that became the base of the brand is, showcasing a high quality product that you can still get in a convenient fashion that is going to encourage those mealtime moments.
Mm. I love that. I love that. And over the last couple of years, right, as I think about the history of your company, you all have grown quite significantly, right? What has that journey been like, right? Because I imagine at one point when you first started the company, you probably couldn't have processed where you are now, right? You couldn't have necessarily thought about it.
Yep.
Because now it's, sometimes I live near a couple of stores and I'll walk in, right? Like I remember living next to a Target, I'll walk in and I'll see the brand, like, huh, it's interesting. Or now, like, I'll go to Whole Foods and it's like, huh, right? But what has that journey been like, right? How did you get to where you are today?
There's a moment. This is 2014 when I'm just trying to start I never forget it. And I wish the picture might exist somewhere, but I walked into a local Giant and this is when I'm trying to figure out how to brand this barbecue sauce. I went to an aisle. I took a picture of this aisle and I said to myself, one day I'm going to be on this shelf. And I walked out. And now it's still surreal to me to see my product in stores like a Target or a Whole Foods, especially considering for the first 4 to 5 years of this company, it was pretty flat. I mean, a little moderate growth, but pretty flatlined. And then it's like we just hit this switch where things started to make a little more sense, right? And it all started because we were introduced to a couple of retailers, and we have been plugging away store by store. We started to build up some momentum, and now we grab a retailer that has 15 locations, more momentum. Now we can approach a Whole Foods, more momentum, right? And just kept building and building and building.
Wow.
Until late 2021. By the way, I'm still working a full-time engineering job. And now I'm starting to struggle in the balance, right? I mean, I'm taking meetings in my car. I'm working from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. straight. I'm mentally starting to break down and burn out because you can't do both, sustain both. And around September, October of 2021, I received word that I was going to be rolling out into Sprouts nationwide the following year. And I said, you know what? I've got to give this my all. Because at this point, I'd made so many mistakes of doing this part-time because you can't do it that way. I'm like, I got to give this my all. And that's the only way I'm going to actually build the company up. And then boom, I switched, and then we grew like 200% because I could dedicate all my time to it. So as scary as that jump was, it was absolutely necessary to get to where we are today.
Oh man. And so Myles, for the audience, where can we find your brands? Right. To me, I just see them everywhere now, right?
Yeah.
But for the audience, where are you located? Right. It seems like across the East Coast, right?
Yep. Yeah. So primarily Target in the Northeast. We're featured in Whole Foods, the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, Maryland area. And then Sprouts, we're actually featured nationwide. And then we're plugged into a lot of your smaller mom and pops throughout the Northeast as well.
Wow. Wow. It's almost shocking to see such massive growth, right? But it's all of that sort of what you talked about, that momentum, that daily grind, all of those steps that sort of start to add up and lead you to where you are today, right?
Yeah. And you learn a lot, right? You talk about going on year 8 coming up, right? That's 7+ years of learning that I have all. And I always tell other entrepreneurs that don't like the slow path, which I understand, but all that learning comes in handy because now, even when I hire people to fulfill roles, I have the base knowledge of how that role should work, right? So I can provide guidance and, it makes it's a lot, but it makes me more knowledgeable about the space and we can move more efficiently.
Yeah. Wow. I'm almost in shock listening to the story again, right? Even though I know it, but it's just amazing to really hear that. And, Myles, you and I were talking a little bit about this traditional route and how it's meant for a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no way you can maybe approach entrepreneurship or give it a try, right? You and I think are both examples where we're working a corporate 9 to 5, and then at some point we decide, all right, we're going to try this and see how it goes.
Yep.
Was there ever a point in growing this business where you thought, shoot, this isn't going to work? This isn't going to work.
There are multiple points, right? And the reason why I never gave up on it is because the passion was there.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about not just an idea. Like entrepreneurs, we have a ton of ideas all the time, but a lot of those are fleeting, right? And I've even wrote business plans for other companies, but I think if it wasn't food related, I would have quit during the tough times. One thing I forgot to mention. So when I moved to DC, I got a new job at the time and was working that job full time for about 2 months. And it was so horrific and I hated every moment of it. It began to affect my motivation. I quit without much of a savings plan. And I said, I'm going to do 8 miles full time. The problem was, being 25 years old, I was more attracted to the allure of being an entrepreneur. So making my own schedule and being a free person, that I ended up spending my time unwisely and I didn't have a path to scale the company. And I burned all of my cash in a few months being in DC, and I ended up having to go back into full-time work. So that was kind of one of those moments of like, man, I kind of messed this up, but it gave me even more motivation that, okay, I know what I need to do different. I know next time I do make this jump to treat it with more care and caution. Wow. And so then, 5 years later after that initial leap, I did it again, but with a much more focused mindset and determination than I did the first time.
I love that. And you bring up a great point, because there's a strategy to all of it, right? Like there could be an opportune time, an opportune moment to actually take that leap. And I've been talking to a lot of folks about the time we're in now, right? Where we foresee a recession, right? We foresee job loss, foreclosures, and so on and so forth. And oftentimes moments like these, I think, tend to scare people off, right? They try to buckle down on security. What they don't realize is a lot of the big unicorn companies that we see today were founded in downturns.
Time. Exactly right.
So it presents a lot of opportunity. And I'm glad you bring that up, because it's all about the strategy that you sort of pursue, right? There's a time, if you are working a 9 to 5, where you have to have certain factors in play, right? Or certain items checked off for it to make sense for you to go in full time. So I absolutely love that, Myles. And it's been a pleasure getting to know more about you. Are you ready for a quick response round?
Let's do it.
So first one here for you. If you lost it all today, what would you do?
Yeah. So I've got the entrepreneurship bug. So if you drop me off somewhere until you're starting over, I start another business. Especially with the knowledge that I have now, I think it'd be really exciting to start from scratch.
Yeah. Hey, Miles, don't tempt me. We might have to try something out. Going forward, what do you have planned in your business and why?
So really what we're doing is creating a category. So we're creating a comfort food category that you don't see in frozen. And we're future plans include expanding it outside of retail. So having our products featured in hospitals, stadiums, hotels, and really expanding the brand to be I call this comfort food mecca and not just a grocery store brand.
Wow, that's super exciting. I love that. If you could give our listeners one piece of advice today, what would it be?
I think the hardest thing in entrepreneurship is what I call the first step fear,
Mm,
where it is very easy to write down an idea, but it takes this push to get you to take that first step.
mm,
And my advice is take that first step because it kind of self-validates your idea internally, but it also encourages you and provides this momentum to take that step 2 and step 3. Um,
wow.
and don't be afraid of, hey, it may not work, right? I've launched a lot of mini ideas in the past that just fell flat because the intention wasn't pure or it just didn't feel like it was a passion. So um, if you really feel strongly about something, the stars will never align perfectly to
Yeah,
take that first step. So I say just do it.
yeah. I I love that. And there's a reason I always talk about Nike's story, right? And how at one point Nike's goal was solely go out there and crush Adidas. And they crushed Adidas, and their basic brand was featured around this premise of just do it, right? It's just get in there and figure it out as you go, right?
Yep.
Figure it out as you go. So I love that. Miles, how can our listeners get to know more about you and connect with you?
Yep. So our website is 8miles.com. That's the number 8 and then myles.com. We're also Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at 8miles Mac. And then LinkedIn. I love talking about entrepreneurship and just this whole journey in general. So I am you can find me Myles Powell on LinkedIn.
Awesome, Miles. Again, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Great interview. A lot of life lessons, I think, and we're so excited to see your continual growth, to be a part of the journey, and to help you wherever we can. Again, thank you so much, and we
Yeah.
look forward to having you back soon.
I appreciate the time, Christian.